Hi, welcome to Inspired Hands Ministries. My name is Juliet, and today we are going to talk about communication. How you communicate matters a lot. How you talk with the people matters a lot. There's some people who don't know how to communicate with the people, and so they think that they're doing the best. But you need to know that how you communicate, how you speak with the people, your tonal variation matters in each and every sentence that you are making. So today is a beautiful day that the Lord has seen that we meet together and we learn what He needs us to know. And today I'm going to show you some of the communication barriers which we have in the society today. Communication barrier varies from linguistics, emotional, we have physical, then we have cultural, then we have attitude and psychological. So let's start with each and every communication barrier. Let's see what the Bible is saying about linguistic language, the language which we are using. When we go to the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verse 9, Genesis chapter 11, verse 9, the Bible says what? Therefore, the name of there, therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from hence there did the Lord scatter from abroad upon the face of all the earth. So you remember the people of Babylon when they were building the tower, because they wanted to see and to know and to go and meet God. But God knew their mind early enough, so He decided to confuse their language. And so if you if when the progress was going on, you find that God confused their language, and so they could not understand each other. And that is the first thing that we see today. For example, if you're deaf and the other person is hearing, there's a communication barrier whereby you don't understand one another, because the language which you're using is different. For example, if you go to Somali now, and maybe another person is from Nigeria, and the two people they meet, then they start communicating. I want to assure you that these two people are going not to understand each other because of the communication barrier, because of the language which they are using. That is the first thing that we need to know. So the best thing which we need to know is what? About the communication barrier. That there are many things that we need to talk about. There are many things that we may need to express. But because of the language which we are using are different from the one the other person is understanding, so communication is going to become a challenge, and it's going to be hard for us to understand one another. The second barrier is emotional. Example, if you have a person who is bereaved, maybe the relatives has all died, and you're trying to tell this person, tell me what happened, how did they die, what happened, when? Communication, this person is not going to find it easy to talk to you well because of the emotions which they're having. If the other person is mad, is angry, how they're going to communicate? If you are and you're rude and you annoy them, then how they're going to communicate is clearly going to show you that they are truly upset. So communication, emotions affect how we communicate with one another. And what does the Bible say about emotions? Communication, because you're angry, because maybe you're happy, maybe you are upset, you're rude, you're confused, you are depressed. How you communicate is going to depend with your emotions. If you're happy, maybe you're going to express happiness and you're going to communicate well. When you're sad, it's going to become hard for you to communicate. When you're stressed and you're depressed and you fear, sometimes communication becomes so hard for you. And these are things that we need to learn as a society. What does the Bible say? Let's move to Proverbs chapter 29, verse 11. It says, a fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in still afterwards. A fool, a foolish man, uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in still afterwards. If you find a person who is, let me use that word, a fool, they just speak howly. They don't know where they are, who they are speaking with, when is the time, where, what is the environment. Like they're just speaking. They don't consider who is around, when to say whatever they're talking about, how to express themselves. Because you find if you are a fool, you don't care about other people's emotions. You don't care about what they think. So if we continue like that, then it means we are not learned, but we are fools. So the best way to communicate with one another, you need to know their emotions. What is the state of their mind? What is the state of their mind? What's the environment? What's their mood? Are they ready to listen to you? Or you're just speaking because you want to speak? So there's another communication barrier which we are having, like that is the physical barrier. If we want to communicate well, and this may not apply to the blind people, but for example, if you want to communicate with a deaf person, and maybe there's a big wall between the two of you, or the sitting position where the seat is a bit not good. So they have to keep on straining every now and then. They're curious, they want to know what you're talking about. Another physical barrier is darkness. And this applies to the deaf community. The deaf community. If there's darkness, there's no way you're going to communicate until you understand one another. It can never happen, because our eyes is what we use to see and to hear. So our eyes have two responsibility. Number one, to see. Number two, to listen. So if you want to communicate with a deaf person, please make sure that you don't have any barrier. Maybe a wall or a tree you're hiding. We all depend on our eyes to see. And another form of communication barrier is maybe where maybe is a crowd and you're speaking and you want the other person who is far end to see you. The communication is not going to be effective because of the barriers that are there. Let's talk about when the people of Israel were moving from Egypt to the promised land. You remember God used the clouds and the darkness. You remember? You remember? He used to guide the people of Israel during the day. He used the clouds, but during the night he used the pillar of fire. So this was another way of communicating. So the people of Israel knew very well that God is communicating with them. He don't have to keep on speaking to them for them to know that God is communicating with them. But he used the fire at night. He also used the clouds to show them the direction. And so the people of Egypt could not reach them. They could not meet or reach them because of the barrier which God built between these two nations. Let's talk about the fourth communication barrier, which is cultural. In some society, a woman is not allowed to communicate directly to a man. And sometimes even children are not allowed to communicate directly to a specific group of people. Maybe they might use their parents, but most of the time they will use a man or their father. Some cultures don't allow us to communicate very well. For example, if you go to a mosque and you are a lady and you are not dressed in a hijab, you have not covered your head, or your dress is a bit short, the communication between you and these people is not going to be effective, because the first barrier they see is your dressing code, how you show up. So culturally, a man should dress like this and a woman should dress like this. So communication becomes a challenge. And when you are a lady and maybe how you dress maybe is a bit tattered, maybe you're not decent, maybe you're not fashionable, maybe your hair is shaggy, but you have a very important message to tell people. Most people will not listen to you. They will not listen because they will focus to how you're dressed, how you show up, how you appear there. So communication is not going to be effective. So those are cultural barriers. So another important, I may say this is the most important communication barrier which we have in our society today, the attitude. Ooh. There's some people who have terrible attitude, especially if they have a specific position in the society. So what they need you to know is what? You address my position. The attitude which they're having already is so bad that you fear to communicate with them. Some people are so bad in communication that you are talking with them, but they don't pay attention. Maybe you are telling them to do this, but they're looking this direction. Maybe you are communicating with them, but they're using their phones. They're always swiping. They're always on Twitter, they're on WhatsApp group, maybe they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, and you're communicating with them. Sincerely, how are you going to understand what this person is telling you if you're not paying attention? That's a very bad, it's actually the worst attitude. because you are communicating that you are not important. Why should I listen to you? Whatever you are telling me is not important. It's not, it is not adding any value in my life. Period. And so, the last one is psychological. Psychological. That it's in the mind. In the mind. How do you see yourself? Matters a lot. And it's another communication barrier. Example, you remember in the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 4, yes. Let me search for it, please. Okay, sorry. Second Samuel, chapter 9, verse 8. Psalm chapter 9, verse 8. And he bowed himself and said, "What is thy servant that I should look upon such a dead dog as me, as I am?" You remember the son of when King David was looking for a person who comes from the family of Jonathan, maybe to show favor and to thank the to thank the father on behalf, to thank this person on behalf of the father, because the two were best friends. So there was a son of Jonathan who was lame, he was disabled. And it was not that he was born disabled, but when there was a war, then they left. The servant was carrying him on the back. Then he fell down and he broke his feet. So the attitude he had in his mind, listen to how he addresses himself, a dead dog like me. The moment you see yourself to be minute, the moment you see yourself that you are not important, how you're going to communicate is going to make things better or bad. It's going to make things better or worse. That's a communication barrier, because already you put yourself in a certain position whereby you are not allowing people to address you how you deserve, but you've already addressed yourself in a different way. You already devalue yourself. You already have a bad attitude towards yourself. How and why would you become so selfish with yourself? Those are the things that we need to change today, brothers and sisters. Within these 6 communication barriers which I've talked about, where do you find yourself? Which of the 6 do you have a problem with? Maybe you can try and change, learn, interact with the people. See yourself to be valuable. Remember, you are loved by God. You are a child of God. You need not to be a slave of fear, because you are a child of God. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to me. I was your host, Juliet. This is Inspired Hands Ministry, and please, you can share this with a friend.